Okay, this is July the 11th, year 2005. It's Louisville, Kentucky, and we're just going to see if we can recount as much family history from the Herman side that we're able to. And of course, my father and his brother Mort, and they're just going to kind of start off with the as far back as they can go and bring it up to the present. And might have some contributions from some people in the audience here. So anytime y'all are ready, you can go ahead and just start. Yeah.
My father's name was Harry H. Herman. Mother's name was Lena. Maiden name was Abrams. Right. I don't recall my grandparents' names because my grandparents' names. Do you recall the dad's parents, mother and father?
You mean their first names?
Well, first name. You know there's...
No, the only grandparents I recall were my father's.
Okay.
And I can't recall their first name. They, at the time that I knew them, they lived in Lower East Side, New York. And grandfather was strictly
was he a Hebrew teacher?
a very orthodox man.
I think he was a Hebrew teacher.
And he spent most of his time in the shul, which meant he didn't do very much work. I would suspect that the
family supported
children supported them. I believe they did.
I think so, yeah. He was...
And they lived a very, very quiet life, just he and his wife. She was the old-fashioned European, and Dad would take me fairly often on Sundays to go visit them.
Where were they, Lou? Where were they born? Were they from Russia, or do you remember whether they were from Russia?
No, they came from Russia.
They did? Okay.
I don't know what
No, not me neither.
City.
No.
But they came from Russia, and of course, they never adapted to American ways or ideas. He lived I think, to be into his 80s. And if I am correct, he died from some dentist.
That happens.
Pulled a tooth and had an infection, something like that.
Sure.
And he didn't recover from it.
Got to be very careful with that.
Of course, today we have a much better arrangement. And that reminds me, Gary, I have to come to see you.
Let's see. In our family, let's see. My mother and father had our oldest sister was Ada. Then was followed by Louis Aaron. There was another boy that was born who died, Barney, who died tragically in an accident.
Drowned
in an accident.
How old was he?
I think he was
that
about...
was in Newark, New Jersey.
Right. How old was he? About 7 or 8 or something like that? I think he was about 7 or 8.
Yeah, just a kid, yeah.
Yeah, he was very young. As a matter of fact, I think it was on a Jewish holiday. I seem to remember something about that. Anyhow, he died, and I guess that I came along 7 or 8 years later, you know. I was sort of a replacement child. Because I think when...
Yeah, Mother was... somehow Rose felt that she had to have a replacement, and
well, that was a mistake. It turned out to be a mistake.
I wouldn't
say it could have been better, but I wouldn't say it was a complete mistake.
No.
Maybe 99% wrong.
But yeah, so my dad, when I was born. I think Dad was about 45 or 46, something like that.
You know, I don't hardly remember a thing about my mother's parents. Do you remember?
No, not at all.
That have been born then.
No, I don't remember anything about it. I know my father had a lot of...
But I do remember the stories about him. He was in business for himself, and he used to make uniforms for the men that ran the trolleys in the city. Made him to order, as a tailor actually. Seems to run in our family, tailors. My father-in-law was a tailor too. And, but I don't remember visiting them or them visiting us. I just don't understand why it worked that way, but that's the memories I have of the two of them. And they had my mother had a brother called Barney. You didn't know that?
If I did, I don't remember.
And he died of a heart attack as a young man.
And they'd have told me that
Go ahead, jump in.
your Barney was named after him
There are
while
plenty
he
of
was
sisters.
still alive, and that your
I
daddy
don't know how
didn't
many
want it.
sisters, 4 or 5 of them.
Your mother insisted, and that was the bad luck that made
And,
the
Oh,
Barney die.
and that's interesting.
But the
Was your
parents,
only name
the
after
parents
the
are
living, not
complete,
the dead.
complete blank. But
Yeah,
they-
well, I don't recall ever seeing them, to be honest with you.
How many brothers did your father have?
My
How many siblings?
father had, what he had? Dave. He had Dave was a brother.
What?
Dad's brothers. He had Dad's brothers. And
He had,
David.
what, 3 brothers?
David,
David, Harold, and
Louis.
Louis.
They were in the dress business.
And
D. Herman and Sons.
they were in the ladies' wholesale manufacturing business. Not Louis. Louis, I think, was a buyer,
Mhm.
a men's clothing buyer for some outfit. But Dave and Harold were partners in this business.
And there was one
And,
sister.
No, they were.
They did pretty good.
I think my father, this goes way back, had another sister called Bessie. I'm almost positive.
You're right.
Bessie, yeah. And I remember, because we used to visit Bessie like on Sundays, and my dad would go around and see the family, and I think Bessie's husband had left her or whatever
Uh-huh.
when she was young, and we used to it was like a family thing, we'd go to see her. He had another sister, Ida, you're right, and he lived with Ida. The latter part of his life, he lived with Ida and her husband.
In his later years.
In his later years, he definitely did. Dad used to live with Ida in his later years. Matter of fact, I think he's buried in the same plot.
And
if I'm not-
mentioned Ida's husband's name.
Ida's husband's name was Jake. I assume it was Jacob. Very nice man. They were lovely people. Yes, ma'am.
Mother's sisters. Talk about
My
that.
mother had sisters. Oh my good, did she have sisters? This was a family that of very strong women. Don't you think so?
Strong will, that's putting it very mildly.
Well, I'm being nice because we're on tape. Let's see, she had, Bessie was one.
Wait a minute, you said Bessie was on.
No, this is and Bessie was a popular name in those days. No, she
Okay.
had and Bessie's husband's name was George.
Do you remember Bessie?
Yes, I remember Bessie vaguely. She was a tough lady. Her son and I were maybe 6 months apart.
She had 2 sons.
Herman
And a daughter.
and Louis Aaron. Her other son was Louis Aaron Hirschberg, and her one son was named Herman. Hirschberg was her married name. In those days, I think Louis Aaron was a very popular name because one of my mother's other sisters, Fanny, had a son who was Louis Aaron Hyman. You remember Lou? He became a doctor. Lou,
Fanny?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wasn't her
that
name-
wasn't Fanny, that was...
wasn't that Fanny's son?
Well, wait a minute.
Fanny
I
was,
forget, you mean... Louis?
she had, and one was Bert.
Hirschberg was his last name.
No,
Louis.
no, 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 no. I'm not talking about Bessie's sons.
Oh.
Mother's other sister. She had 2 sons and a daughter. And one son was Louis Aaron.
She had 2 daughters.
Oh, you're right, Clara.
Right?
She had
Well, I
2
keep
daughters.
remembering Clara. There was one that was a little older than me. I remember I used to take showers with her.
What was her
I was very young.
what was her last name?
I can't remember her name. At that time, the name was Hyman.
Okay.
Was her
I-
name
Did you
Francis?
run into any of these people again?
One of them, I don't know. All right, anyhow, Fanny's children were Louis Aaron. There was Bernie. You remember Bernie? Bernie.
Bernie Hyman.
Yes, Bernie. That was her.
That was Katie's son.
Katie, not Fanny. Thank you very much. That was Katie. Well, there was a Fanny in there somewhere. That was Katie's sons. Okay. Clara was Bessie's.
How about,
And then Bella.
Bella was another one of my mother's sisters. Lovely lady. Satori, whose husband died very early
He
on.
was a doctor, wasn't
He
he?
was a doctor, Lower East Side, New York.
children?
Had a lot of kids. Had a lot of kids. 4 girls, 1 boy. Boy was 6 months younger than me. And we were all the 3 boys, the boy cousins were close at that bit when we were teenagers.
What was his name?
Joseph or Jackie.
They were Catholic, weren't they?
I know, well, they practiced Catholicism. They had a choice. They could be either Jewish or Catholic, and I guess the Catholic won out. And and they were, surprisingly, they grew up okay, because they had neither mother nor father at an early age, and the oldest sister really was instrumental in raising all the children. Name was Eleanor. There was her name, the oldest sister's name was Eleanor. Then there was Rosalind. There was Jackie, and the others escaped me, to be honest with you.
Didn't they have a younger sister that
Yes.
died?
Yes, that was one of the, Adele.
Was that
Would
her
you
name?
believe that? Her name was Adele, I think.
I know that we went to visit.
You got a heck
her,
of a memory, you know?
And she was laid out, not
Yes.
in a coffin, but on.
Right, she had a bad heart from the time she was a tiny one, I
Yes.
remember.
Mhm.
Yeah. And, okay, that takes care of those sisters. I can't think of any more sisters. Or
Did she have any brothers?
my mother?
No,
Yeah.
your mother had 1 brother.
One brother.
Your mother had 1 brother.
Right, that
Who
was,
passed away.
yeah, that was Barney. No?
Mhm. Yes.
Yes, that was Barney. That was it. The rest were just sisters. They were, again, they were a very strong-willed family. Yeah. The men in that family really learned how to toe the line at an early age. I mean, you just didn't say anything bad.
Remember Aunt Dana said they were at Bella's for dinner? She got mad at her husband and was carving a turkey. She's chasing him around the table.
Uh-huh.
And the kids just went on and ate.
Yeah, well.
No
hey.
one,
Yeah,
no
when
one-
you're hungry, you're hungry. I mean, you know. I can't think of anything else in relation to the relatives.
Well, do you want to mention that, say, Ida's children and who they were?
Ida's children, good enough. Ida's children.
Ida Bayer.
Ida Bayer, my father's sister, with whom he lived with Ida for a number of years.
Yeah.
Sister,
Her husband's name was Jack. You asked
Jack.
me that a couple of days ago, and I didn't
Right.
recall.
Yeah.
It was Jack Bear.
I remember that at one of Harry Herman's birthday parties, Ida, who was a very sweet little lady,
she was.
she recited, Harry, a happy birthday to you, and many happy birthdays. Sometimes you are very, very sweet, but when you are not, you are horrid. That's what she
Yeah,
was
that
saying.
would be about as nasty as she would get. She was just a nice lady. Well, her husband and my father used to play pinochle incessantly at night because we had no television then. And the radio didn't work all the time. You know, you can only listen to Jack Benny anyhow.
Gary, how far back do you want us to go, or what, in other words, you want us to progress up to present times?
Yes.
Well,
You want to make a move?
I think I can remember some of that a little better,
You didn't do my
although
no
I'm
bears.
surprised
Oh,
myself how
wait,
little I remember.
hang on a second, I gotta do the Bayard children. Let's see, the Bayard children were Daniel, Monroe, and Cyrus, 3 boys. She had no girls that I can recall, thank you, no girls.
And Cyrus was married to Carol,
To Carol, Monroe was married,
and their children were
you're gonna tell me,
Bennett
Bayer, who lives in Lexington, Kentucky.
and Lee.
Lee, also a son?
Yes.
It's a son, Lee, okay.
Okay. Why don't you mention something about your dad? Wasn't he, what war was he in?
My father, oh yeah,
And all-
when he
And
was,
different, whatever, anything about him?
not a problem. He was a youngster when he came, you know, he was just a child when he came to the United States, but he enlisted in the Spanish-American War when he was underage. I think he was like 15 or 16, something like that. And he lied about his age and he got into the Navy. And we have pictures of him
Yeah.
in his Navy uniform. I think the Navy found out about it though and booted him out. I think that's what happened. You know. But he really goes back a long way. You know, when you consider the Spanish-American War is really just a footnote. You know, in most history books now.
Your mother came from Odessa.
My mother did come from
You
Odessa.
bet.
No way. Mother is the Queen City of Russia. All right.
You want
They know
to,
what, they know what town Harry
you want
came
to
from?
discuss
No,
the
I don't
more
even know where
current
Mary came from.
Sure.
It was
people?
Russia.
Sure. Why don't you
I
start?
think so.
Did you want to have
So
something?
the reason I suggest that
Harry
is
was
that
from
I would
Russia,
like to
though.
get in a word here.
Okay.
Harry was from
Oh,
Russia.
Apparently, this has turned into a monologue a la Morty,
Oh,
Oh, no, it's yours.
which is all right with me. It's all right with me because when you review this,
You're going to cut me out.
it'll be all his trouble. And also, this is a complete surprise to me, Gary. If I had known you were going to do this, I'd have worn my new blue jeans.
Oh,
You know, I got a pair of blue jeans for Father's Day from Gary and Terry, and it's the first pair I've ever owned, and I think it will be the last.
You never wear them.
And I wore them the other day after they had been laundered, and I felt like a marionette in them, a little stiff and here and there. But I did break the barrier, and I entered the modern age. Well, anyhow, whether I'm of the modern age or the old age, here I am, and I'm going to talk a little about our current family.
oh, wait a minute. Maybe before we get there, and mention, you know, Ada's husband and Ada's kids,
Oh,
and
yes.
don't forget, you know, and then.
Oh, okay.
Is that
You
okay?
want to, Gary asked about that we said don't forget to mention Ada's children. Ada and Milton.
Oh, sure, okay.
Yeah.
We'll start off with Ada because she happens to be the oldest. Ada is my sister, and we were talking about strong-willed people earlier in the taping here. She's a pretty strong-willed person, but she was always trying to do what was best for the family and children. Very good-natured, very big-hearted, took care of my mother and father in their older years at times, and she was a great girl. Lived to be about, what, 93?
Mhm.
Something like that.
Yes.
And she was a great person and a lot of fun to be with.
She was
She
married.
had 2 sons.
She was married to Milton Coleman.
What?
She was married to Milton Coleman.
My wife tells me that she was married. Well, I assume she's married. She had
Well, I want
how
you to
many
give the
children?
name.
3 children?
I want you to give his name.
For the record.
Children were 2 boys and 1 girl, Patsy. The boys were,
Richard.
Your favorite.
Richard, don't mention Richard to me, please. I'm feeling pretty good right now. Richard and
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey had 2 boys. And her husband Milton, he was a really nice fella. And we got along great with Ada and Milton somehow or other. We were always very compatible.
We traveled together.
And I think about that, and I think the reason we got along and we were so compatible was because I never said much. Because with Ada around, you didn't have to say much. She did most of the talking and directing, which is okay. After all, she was my sister. And then I have a brother who's sitting right here with me. He's wearing a nice pair of blue jeans too. And we used to have good times together when we were younger. Believe it or not, we used to be handball partners when we lived in the Bronx.
We were good.
And played handball with all those roughneck Jewish kids in the park. Do you remember that?
We were good. We were
But
good.
that didn't matter. We were just as rough and tough as they were when it came to playing. And we did pretty good. Did pretty good. We didn't win all the time, but when we lost, they knew that they had been up against a couple of guys that
Absolutely.
didn't like to lose. Mort and I were pretty close. Being the older brother, I felt a certain sense of responsibility towards him, which at times I think I failed. But apparently he survived pretty good without my overseeing anything. That's my, and then of course I had one brother, Barney, who passed away at a tender age. Maybe he was 5 or 6 years old.
Very young,
something
yeah.
like that. While we lived in Newark, New Jersey. All right, that's
Now wait, You haven't-
that's a brief resume
no,
of my growing up. And Morty went ahead and became an optometrist and practiced in
Detroit.
Michigan.
In Detroit.
What was the name of that little town?
Detroit.
Huh?
Detroit. Oh, where I practiced Wyandotte.
What?
Wyandotte.
Yeah.
Wyandotte, Michigan.
And he did nicely. Had a lovely wife who's looking at me, wondering what I'm going to say about her. And the only thing I can say about her is she's really okay.
She could
But
live
one
with them,
thing
she's okay.
I had against Arlene, and I'm going to come right out now and say it in front of the millions of people that are going to see this tape over television. When Ro and I were spending a couple of weeks at their home one summer, we went out and we bought them a basket, a beautiful basket.
Am I going to hear this
And it wasn't
basket
cheap
story
either.
again?
And we brought it home, and the problem was where to put it. The basket had a lot of detail work on it, which you had to see up close to appreciate it. Of course, that doesn't mean much to Arlene then. You know where she put the darn thing? She put it on the top of a closet ceiling where it was hitting the ceiling, where you couldn't see it. All you could realize was that it was a basket. And it made me very unhappy for years.
Actually, it became a basket case.
But fortunately, things have changed, and they moved into a new home, and I'm assured, although I haven't seen it, therefore I will reserve my final opinion. She tells me it's the first thing you see when you walk into the house. Well, if that's true, you must have been thinking about me when you did that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Anyhow, she's a good girl and we love her. And the thing that bothers me is that
She's stuck with Martin.
we may not be able to get down there to see that lovely new home she has, but you never know. Maybe we can make it. All right, that's Arlene and my brother.
Martin.
And we mentioned that couple. You've got to give some consideration to that Detroit gang.
Mm-hmm.
I call it the mafia. How many kids you got up there?
5. 5, 10 grandchildren, 5 children.
5 children, but
No,
they're children and
9
all
children.
that.
No.
9 children
It must be at least
and
20.
10 grandchildren.
Is that
Excuse me?
close to
Excuse
it?
me? I have 9
You
children
got
there.
a family there
You're,
that just won't quit, and they're all
Okay.
branching out and going to college and doing this and doing that, and it sounds good to me.
All right, Martin.
Do you want to mention their names of each
To
one?
get
Well,
down,
yeah.
to get a little closer to home, tell you about myself and my treasures. I have a wife that I don't know how I got so lucky, but I have a wonderful life and a wonderful life. Great. I'm a very fortunate man. Not only that, but I have 2 great kids, Gary and Nancy. And at this day and age, at this stage of the game, they have proven invaluable to us. And we're so happy that they are here to be with us. Now, of course, I've got to include my other daughter. They call them, legally, they call them daughter-in-laws. But Terry, my son's wife, is such a doll and such a great person that I can't consider her related to me just by marriage. I got to consider her one of my very own children, and I do. And I have the greatest love for her and respect. Well, to flesh out the picture, I can't leave out my 4 great-granddaughters. 4 of them, can you imagine 4 of them? Nancy has 2, Kimberly and Jennifer. Gary and Terry have 2. Jill and Lindsay. And I wouldn't trade those kids for all the money in the world for anything. They're such wonderful children and so loving and caring that it just makes my heart beat faster when I think about them and when I talk about them. Briefly, I think it's briefly, you all may be bored, I don't know, but briefly, that's about the story. bringing it up to date. And
You didn't mention their,
I'll let, do you want to say something?
you didn't mention my name.
What?
You didn't mention my name. For
Mention your
posterity.
name.
Name.
Her name.
You don't talk for yourself.
No, Rosalie said you didn't mention her name.
I didn't mention Rosalie's
You
name?
just said I was your wife.
Okay. I will mention your name.